information. And of course, you're live on CTV and Talk City 91.1. Let's take you now live to Debate 1 on CTV. CTV, Trinidad and Tobago's election headquarters 2013. Thursday, October 10th, local government representatives, and Tuesday, 15th October, the leaders debate. And it's all live on CTV and Talk City 91.1 and ctntworld.com.
The 2013 local government elections debate is presented by the TT Debates Commission and supported by the Ansa Macau Group of Companies, the Neil and Massey Group of Companies, and Republic Bank Limited. The Debates Commission is an independent, autonomous, non-profit body. The TTDC seeks to embed a culture of debates in our nation's democratic process. Debates that will be insightful to inform the decisions and opinions of you, our nation's future. You can support the TTDC's upcoming debates by texting from your B mobile phone. Text 1 TTDC for $10, 2 TTDC for $20, or 4 TTDC for $50. Like us on Facebook and visit our website www.ttdc.org.tt for more details.
Where people are people, you know what I mean. Tattoo celebrates 50 years, fulfilling dreams. For 50 years we've been right by your side, serving you with passion and pride. For 50 years of our service from us, we'll go the distance and that you can trust. We will protect you from the unseen. Tattoo where people are people, if you know what I mean.
Black, blue, or pink boots, loafers, flats, heels, sandals, or your friends' older styles in a car with more legroom. Bluetooth, ABS, airbags, and diaper training. The new Nissan Versa. Innovation you deserve. Innovation for all.
So you in a jam this season. No time to moan and groan.
Christmas looking better when I make it happen. Let's all go my champagne. This Christmas looking better. It's like more renovating. This Christmas looking better. I need my home, I tried it. This Christmas looking better. This thing you look exciting. This Christmas looking better.
It's easy, quick, and so affordable to have all you need for Christmas with a Make It Happen loan from Republic.
Christmas looking better when I make it happen.
Republic Bank, we're the one for you.
Hello, good evening. As we approach the 2013 local government elections, the Trinidad and Tobago Debates Commission is pleased to present the Senior Party Representatives Debate. For the very first time, 4 political organizations will face off on live national television to debate the issues that affect you, the viewing and voting public. This is actually the 3rd live television debate organized by the Debates Commission. Some of you may remember the first local government elections debate in 2010, and of course the THA elections debate earlier this year. I am your moderator, Wesley Giddings, and the theme for the debate this evening is local government representation. Let's first take a look at the objectives of the debate. By hosting these debates, The Debates Commission intends to entrench debates into the political culture of Trinidad and Tobago to further strengthen the democratic process, stimulate discussion, encouraging political leaders at all government levels to debate issues of national importance, provide a platform for accountability and transparency of political leaders' promises, and assist citizens in making more informed decisions about their choice of representatives. This evening, the debaters are recognized in their capacity as representatives of their organization and not in any other official position. All four organizations, the People's Partnership, the People's National Movement, the Independent Liberal Party, and the Movement for Social Justice, had previously agreed to the guidelines for tonight's debate. Now let's give you an idea as to the timing that the debaters will have. Each debater shall have 60 seconds to present an opening statement. Debaters will then have a maximum of 90 seconds to answer their respective questions. The other debaters will each have 30 seconds to rebut. They will know their times by a countdown clock, which is in the studio, and it's a very big one and very difficult to miss. The questions for tonight's debate have been created by me with some assistance from you viewers as well, but have not been in any way influenced by the Debates Commission. So let's meet our debaters in order of appearance. They are Akins Vidale for the Movement for Social Justice, Colm Imbert for the People's National Movement, Dr. Surujrattan Rambachan representing the People's Partnership, and Mr. Ken Roach for the Independent Liberal Party. Previously, the debaters drew for the order in which they will deliver their opening statement and answer the various questions. Mr. Vidal, you may begin. You have 60 seconds.
Good evening, and good evening to citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. I'm here this evening representing the Movement for Social Justice, and I'd just like to say that we are a party built of persons who have spent the majority of our lives working in the interests of the majority of citizens in this country. We are committed to challenging the status quo, to bursting that and breaking that bubble which has been the structure of the colonial system which we have inherited and have not done enough to break since independence. We are clear that the MSJ is the only party in Trinidad and Tobago at this time which can in fact move us forward over the next 50 years and transform Trinidad and Tobago in the way that it needs to be transformed. And in saying that, we are clear and confident that the MSJ in this period is in fact the solution.
Thank you, Mr. Imbert.
PNM has been in party politics since 1956, brought this country to independent status and Republican status. Our policy for this local government election is very clear. We recognize, like most other people, that our current system of local government is not efficient and does not deliver goods and services in a timely manner. We have proposed radical reforms to the system of local government. There's been a lot of talk about this for the last 30 years. The Wooding Commission from 1974, for example, that is in fact 40 years, recommended reforms to local government, and we intend to restructure the system to give these corporations the executive authority that they need, the autonomy that they require, and a secure source of funding so that they can deliver goods and services promptly and efficiently.
Thank you. Dr. Rambachan.
Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. Good evening, citizens. We live in a society that is far different from 2 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. It's a society in which people want to be more empowered. People want to have a more direct say and intervention in the decisions that affect their communities and affect their lives. We believe, therefore, that citizen participation in decisions that govern the outcomes in their communities must in fact be encouraged. And we intend to do just that. We believe that at the heart of good local government and good governance is the way we bring into the stream of decision making the views of all citizens. And we intend to do this by building stronger councils, by giving them the financial, the material, the human and other resources that will allow them to deliver in a more timely, efficient and effective manner.
Thank you. Mr. Roach.
Good evening. My name is Ken Roach. I'm here to represent the Independent Liberal Party. We are by no means as experienced as some of our competitors. However, the advantages which accrue to us have to do essentially with the fact that we have been able to look objectively at some of the atrocities and some of the missteps that have taken place since 1956. And with a view to correcting them, we are here to take Trinidad and Tobago through what we call the birth pangs of a new political era. In that context, Mr. Moderator, it is our responsibility to add not just new wine to the old bottle that is called that we are dealing with in terms of local government, but to change the substance and the essence of it.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Okay, now the first question for the evening will go to Akins Vidale of the MSJ. I want to ask you, what in the makeup of the MSJ and how it does its work? There's no parliamentary seats, no experience in government, a recent breakup with the ruling coalition, leaving perhaps your past leader behind. What about it makes it believe it can make a mark in a local government election?
All right, thank you. That's an excellent question. Firstly, let me tell you that we have been able to, in several instances, without having any seats at this point, make interventions. For example, very recently we were able to bring water to the citizens and residents in Big Yard and Caranage, and that was through interventions because, as I said earlier on, many of us in the MSJ are political activists, we're trade unionists, we're community activists, so that we are accustomed to fighting and struggling. And in fact, I'm going to go so far as to say that the MSJ is in a better position than the other opposition parties to make these interventions because they have been in opposition for some time now and these issues had not been addressed. And it is through interventions of the MSJ, with all of our limitations as you have outlined, that we've been able to do these things. At the level of our candidates, each one of our candidates are persons who have been able to make interventions in the community. We have persons who have been able to identify issues such as drainage, sidewalks, and so on, and made the necessary interventions for those things to be corrected. We have been able to, even at the level of policy, influence policy. So, for example, as a former president of the Trinidad Youth Council myself, the only sector in this country which has a working policy are the youth. And that is because of the work that we did while I was at the helm of the Trinidad Youth Council. And that is the kind of experience that we bring within the MSJ. Even though we have not been part of a government structure before, we are in fact well poised to make an impact.
Thank you. Mr. Imbert, your response to what you've just heard.
Well, I admire my colleagues' enthusiasm, but the MSJ, in my opinion, has no real formal structure and no broad appeal, and I wish them luck, but I think it will take some time before they get to the level of being able to directly impact on people's lives in the manner in which he has suggested.
Rambachan.
The People's Partnership has demonstrated beyond a shadow of a doubt its capability at both governance and the provision of the infrastructure that people require. We are a party whose record speaks for itself, especially over the last 3 years. In every part of this country you go, you will see improvements to the quality of life. And in addition to that, we have been able to practice good governance in terms of respecting the rule of law and adhering to the Constitution in terms of calling elections as one primary example.
Thank you, Dr. Rambachan. Mr. Roach.
The MSJ, Mr. Moderator, has played a key role in taking us to where we are at this given point in time. The situation now is that the battle has been passed and it must be taken up by someone who understands where the levers of control in politics need to go. This is the role of the ILP in the present circumstances, and we invite them to come to us anytime.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Question for Mr. Imbert of the PNM. To what extent would you say the PNM is relying on the results of these local government elections to serve as a barometer for its performance at the polls in 2015. Such a claim was made following the THA elections. There was quite a lot of talk about its future in elections. But there appeared to be some silence following the Chaguanas West by-election. What's your response?
Well, any election result will give you some indication of the way the population, the feelings of the population, their intentions in terms of supporting one party or another. But far beyond that, what we want to do in this local election is to demonstrate that the PNM is the party of the future for the next general election. You'll have noted that in addition to our manifestos, because we have 14 of them, we've developed a manifesto for each local government corporation. The first part of the manifesto is general policy, and the second part is the development plan for each one of the 14 corporations. I haven't seen any manifestos from the other parties yet. But the point is, we want to demonstrate we're a serious party. We do believe that we have an opportunity to demonstrate that in this local election. I certainly think we're going to do extremely well. We have been articulating policy on our political platforms. There's a meeting in Digger Martin tonight, for example, which unfortunately I could not attend because I'm here. But we've made a conscious effort to start presenting ourselves as an alternative government, and we will soon be rolling out detailed policy in every area of economic activity, in every sphere of national life, in every aspect of national importance that people are interested in. In terms of this election, certainly it will be an indicator in terms of the PNM success in the next general election.
Dr. Rambachan, your response?
Well, when we get up on the morning of October 22nd, the government will still be in place. The Prime Minister will still be the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. But we in the People's Partnership have already been demonstrating the change. We have been developing municipal plans, and these municipal plans are for the 14 corporations. Disaster management plans we have been developing. And we have really entered the change process already in order to deliver on a more efficient basis to the population.
Thank you, Mr. Roach.
Mr. Moderator, the expression feelings of the population seems to me to be an admission that there is a gap and a disconnect between the most experienced party in the country and the needs and aspirations of the population. This is where the ILP has taken up the mantle, and we propose to take it to its logical conclusion, which is the provision of quality services and representation to the people.
Thank you, Mr. Vidale.
Yes, I think that for a party that has been around since 1956, we ought to have had a more confident response. But it is clear that the party at this point is challenged, and that is because we have not understood that in spite of all the manifestos, there has not been a clear vision from the PNM to remove power from central government into the hands of citizens at the level of local government. And until that is done, we are going to continue to have this back and forth, moving from one party to another without real change.
Thank you. Question now for Dr. Rambachan. Dr. Rambachan, there was an attempt by the Congress of the People to be a part of this debate. Now with the focus on local government, how different do you think this debate would have been if they were here?
I represent the People's Partnership, and as a People's Partnership we have common policies and we have common beliefs, and that is why we have remained a partnership. There were lots of people who believed that we wouldn't last 1 month, we'll last 3 months. Here we are, we have lasted 3 years, and we're going to continue to last a full term, and then we're going to win the next general elections and go into the next 5-year term. And in the process of these 3 years, what we have done, we have proven beyond a doubt that we are a strong team, and that we can in fact be a strong team and continue to have differences of opinion, but stand for what is most important, and that is for what the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago would like. We believe that the citizen is at the center and at the heart of our governance process, and it is that that directs the partnership to be firm and to be strong. And because of that, we have been able to deliver in 2010-11, 2011-12, and 2012-13 in local government what has never been delivered before, even by the most experienced political party here this evening, who boasts about the manifesto. But what is important is what is on the ground. And for example, the people of Sunrise Recreation Ground down in Gasparino are now celebrating the pavilion, as the people of Bonaventure are celebrating 1 million gallons of water more per day that has come to their community because of the performance of WASA. We have been able to perform and we have been able to deliver. While they talk, we deliver.
Thank you, Dr. Rambachan. Mr. Roach?
Mr. Moderator, I am taken aback by the assertion that the present party in government has satisfied the aspirations and expectations of the population. Under the Ministry of Local Government, we have no fewer than 5 state entities. No fewer than 5. One of them has no right there. It's Swimcol, the Solid Waste Management Company.
I'm sorry, I'll have to cut you. We'll have to go to Mr. Vidale.
Yes, it's interesting that Dr. Rambachan talks about the partnership being strong. As a member of the MSJ, I'm fully aware, as is the rest of the population, that on June 17th, 2012, the MSJ removed itself from the partnership. So the partnership no longer exists. It is but a fragment of what had originally been elected. And we can see, if what has been said is true, then Dr. Rambachan needs to explain what happened in Chaguanas West, if in fact people are so happy with their performance as a government.
Mr. Imbert?
Well, again, I admire Dr. Rambachan's enthusiasm, but the partnership is deeply fractured. They've lost the MAJ to my right, the ILP to my left. The COP is deeply divided. Members are scattering all over the place. They're calling themselves former members of the COP, former members of the partnership. In fact, I think the partnership is in a comatose state at this point in time on life support, and I don't think they will be revived.
Thank you very much. We'll now take a brief break and we'll be back. Okay, let's go to Ken Roach. My question to you is, 3 years ago, the leader of your party was an active and enthusiastic collaborator with the People's Partnership, engaged in a campaign to win local government elections. What's different about the ILP message in 2013?
The ILP message in 2013 is essentially different because of the changing dynamics of especially local government requirements in Trinidad. The act under which the local government operates is Act number 21 of 1990. The leader of the ILP saw in that act and the manner in which the present government is dealing with the corporations as a sufficient reason to create concern given his perspective in politics, which is direct service, so that Chaguanas West was a prime example where the bar was raised. If you cannot attend perpetually and properly to the needs of your constituents, you pay the price. Having gone into Chaguanas West and created the example, it is difficult now for other political parties to adjust to what the ILP has put in place, because the genesis of the ILP is service, quality service, and understanding the needs and aspirations of your constituents. That seems to me to be the essential difference between what was and now and what is now.
Mr. Roach, Mr. Vidale.
Yes, well, there are clear differences between what Mr. Roach may have articulated and what I think the rest of us would have actually experienced. The fact of the matter is that had Mr. Warner been selected as the candidate for Chaguanas West by the UNC, we may not have had an ILP. And I do not think that that is speculative. I think that that is very, very clear and obvious to those of us who were paying close attention to what was going on. So I really don't see the response as being valid at this point.
Mr. Imbert?
Well, I think the ILP is a one-man show. It's a clone of the UNC. It's just UNC in another shade. And it's all very well to talk about service, but whatever service we got from the leader of the ILP was certainly not to be experienced in Diego Martin, for example. where our infrastructure was not attended to when the goodly leader of the ILP was Minister of Works. So I don't understand this concept of service, because it was concentrated only in Chaguanas to the exclusion of the rest of Trinidad.
Dr. Rambachan.
I've been searching for the message of the ILP. When I listen to the message of the ILP, it's a message of hate, a message of spite, a message of vengeance. That simply occurred only after the leader of the ILP left the partnership. Before that, the partnership was gung-ho. It was the best thing on this side of the earth. And I really wonder what they can do different. He had a great opportunity within the partnership to deliver, and in several ways didn't. Some things that we are now fulfilling to the satisfaction of the population. A party of service is the People's Partnership.
Thank you, Dr. Rambachan. This time we take the break. We'll be back with you shortly.
The 2013 local government elections debate is presented by the TT Debates Commission and supported by the Ansamacao Group of Companies, the Neil and Massey Group of Companies, and Republic Bank Limited.
This Diwali, light up your life at Standard with a chance to win up to $60,000 in cash with the purchase of Surujrattan or Electrolux appliances, and take advantage of special offers on exquisite wood-house living and bedroom sets. So come, light up your life at Standard for a chance to win solid cash to spend anywhere, anyhow, because you have standards. Shubh Diwali from Standard. Standard, never beaten on quality.
Neil and Massey Group, a driving force for business in the Caribbean for almost a century. Guided by vision and sound values, Neil and Massey has grown to become one of the region's largest group of companies. With an asset base of around $1 billion and revenues of $1.3 billion US, the Neil and Massey Group includes more than 60 companies active in a wide range of sectors, from the food industry to consumer finance, auto and industrial equipment, insurance, energy and industrial gases, ICT, real estate and property management. The group has a wide regional footprint with operations in Trinidad, Barbados, Guyana, Jamaica, and the Eastern Caribbean. A valued long-term partner for international companies, Neil and Massey has forged strong working relationships with such global leaders as Caterpillar, Nissan, Oracle, Procter & Gamble, ConAgra, Air Liquide, MoneyGram, and Wood Group. Neil and Massey also plays a role in making responsible and sustainable contributions to the communities in which it operates. Neil and Massey, a force for good.
Welcome back to live coverage of the local government elections debate 2013. The question now goes to Akins Vidale of the Movement for Social Justice. What is your party's view on this whole thing about the payment of land and property taxes? Should receipts from these areas of revenue go directly to the coffers of local government bodies?
Yeah, the two parts to that. Now, as you know, when the partnership came in, it would have said no property tax and inadvertently also removed the land and building taxes. It is unheard of for you not to pay taxes on land and buildings. The reintroduction, however, and this discussion about possibly having the corporations responsible for collection, the problem with that is that in some corporations you're going to have a much larger intake of funds than in other places, particularly places that are highly industrialized. So that singularly is not necessarily something that we agree with. However, in terms of funding for corporations, we do recognize that there needs to be an adjustment in terms of how we approach it, so that for the MSG, we are looking at the possibility of local government having the same kind of statutory arrangement as perhaps the THA, where there's a standard set of criteria, objective criteria established beforehand, which determines how much resources are allocated to a particular corporation at any point in time. And that has to be based on data from Central Statistical Office and so on, because we've identified that for a particular population of persons or citizens, you ought to have X amount of schools, health facilities, community centers, and so on, and that really it is the people who ought to prioritize. But in the current system, even if you were to do that, it would not really help development at the level of the community.
Mr. Imbert, your response?
Well, I think the MSG misunderstands the entire concept. At present, local government bodies have to wait on releases from the Ministry of Local Government, who in turn have to wait on releases from the Ministry of Finance. There's always a delay at the beginning of the financial year. The whole point of allowing local government corporations to keep the taxes collected within their boundaries is to give them cash flow at the beginning of the year to allow them to start their projects in the dry season and maximize efficiency.
Rambachan.
I think that the property tax as envisaged and proposed by the PNM was a tax that would have pauperized many families and contributed even to a higher level of poverty among the low-income families in the country. And therefore we vehemently disagreed with the property tax. At the same time, though, people in this country are willing to pay. People know they have to contribute, and they're willing to pay fair taxes in terms of their buildings and properties. Yes, we agree that these taxes should be given to local government corporations so that they can engage in local economic development and provide better quality services.
Mr. Roach?
Mr. Moderator, the question of land and buildings taxes and property taxes in the corporations is a very serious one for the ILP. Reason, the ARV which is used right now, that is annual rateable value for properties, is not only antiquated, it is outdated and anachronistic. It doesn't take into consideration present market values of properties.
Thank you very much. A similar question to you, Mr. Imbert. You have said more than once on the campaign trail that local government bodies should be able to retain, some revenue from the collection of taxes and fines in order to finance their work. But how would you cater for the anomalies between the municipalities, the financial anomalies?
Well, in the first place, I want to point out that the gentleman on my right has obviously not read our manifestos, because we intend to devolve all authority to local government bodies. But one of the key elements in such devolution of authority is to give local government bodies a secure source of funding. The last time land and building taxes were collected, the total aggregate was about $400 million. Currently, the budget of the Ministry of Local Government is $2 billion, I believe, if I'm right, if I remember the last budget. So therefore, the total quantum of local land and building taxes is way below what the financial needs of corporations are. If there's any corporation that would collect land and building taxes in excess of its requirements, that is an administrative matter that could be dealt with by the Ministry of Finance. But the point is that unless these corporations get a steady stream of funds, cash flow, at the beginning of the year, they're going to be a humbug, they're going to be stymied, they're not going to be able to do their work. Currently, corporations just have to sit down and wait for the Minister of Local Government in his beneficence to send them money, and he in turn has to wait on the Minister of Finance to make releases to the ministry and to the local government corporations. It's how it's done in Tobago. The Tobago House of Assembly is allowed to keep taxes collected within Tobago for its cash flow.
Dr. Rambachan.
The government of the People's Partnership has not starved the local government corporations of any finances over the last 3 years. In fact, last year, the local government corporations received a total of $738 million to do development work in the country, paving, bridges, and what have you. And in addition to that, this year, through the Infrastructure Development Fund and the PSIP Fund, those two, $541 million have been targeted for the local government corporations apart from the recurrent expenses.
Roach?
Mr. Moderator, the question of taxes, I must revert to it. $400 million collected by the corporation is not the quantum that ought to be collected. If we are talking in terms of reform, the ILP feels very strongly that we should reform local government in the truest sense of the word. If you are talking in terms of reform, then you must of necessity go to a taxation process which is better able to be of substance to the corporations.
Your time is up, Mr. Vidale.
Sure. I want to deal with two parts of it very quickly. The first part is that my colleague on my left, Mr. Imbert, very clearly in opposition, he now sees the challenge with the central government having authority over all the finances and funding. And when the PNM was there, however, they didn't see the need to have local government have access to its own resources. And let's be clear on the allocation. Yes, it's $2 billion. However, $2 billion represents recurrent expenditure. There's only a $300 million allocation for developmental projects at the level of local government.
Thank you. This question now goes to Surujrattan of the People's Partnership. What, if any, would be the role of a reformed system of local government in addressing the question of crime?
You must strengthen local government corporations through the municipal police in order to assist the national police with the matter of crime. But apart from that, local government is about people government. And in order to fight crime, you must have the support of the communities. And local government, under our system, will work with the local communities in order to have greater awareness in the local communities of what are the crime spots and who are the potential persons who will fall through the crack. And then adopt systems to avoid that. So it will be preventative in approach. In fact, we have been doing a lot of that already. In several communities, in addition to the community centers that we are building, we have been building what are called activity centers. Activity centers are places where children can come in evenings and they can do their homework. Computers are being placed in those centers. There's places where 50 to 60 persons can gather for meetings of the community, for discussing matters in the community. So we are trying to build communities and use the communities together with the municipal police and by extension the police in the area in order to alleviate the crime situation that's taking place. We feel that what communities build, they protect. And we feel still that Trinidad and Tobago is a place where people still care about each other, where people still care about children, where people still care that people will not fall through the cracks, and they will do everything in order to ensure that those who are falling through the cracks will in fact be lifted.
Mr. Roach?
Mr. Moderator, the ILP has a crime plan for Trinidad and Tobago. It has worked in municipalities outside of this country. However, for two reasons, we cannot go into details with respect to that plan. One is that it will be copied. We are not in government yet. Two, the essence of the plan has to do with the eradication of what we call the political, the divide in this country between urban and rural areas.
Okay, your time is up. Akins, Vidale?
Sure. There's a clear divide between the government and the people. One of the things that needs to happen, which has not been happening, while the government may say that we're building all these community centers and we have all of these activities going on, the problem is that the genesis of the idea comes from the cabinet and not from the people. So you have cabinet announcing recently the construction of, I think it's 10 new community centers, but they decide where, they decide what they look like, and all of those things, when in fact it is the people of the community who should make those decisions.
You, Mr. Imbert.
Well, whatever the government believes it's doing to deal with crime, it's not working. So I listened to my colleague, Dr. Rambachan, but I really didn't get much out of what he said. We are not afraid of anybody copying our plan. It's on our manifesto. We intend to completely revamp the system of municipal police. Municipal police has been on the law books for 20 years, but they are not properly structured, and we intend to rebuild the municipal police force from scratch like any city, New York or any large city.
Thank you. Ken Roach of the ILP. What do you think should be the relationship between a minister of local government and the local government bodies?
In the present scenario, the problem we have is that there is a hegemonic relationship between the ministry and the minister and the local government bodies. In the event that there is some disparity in terms of perspective and in terms of the manner in which the councillor or the council perceives the corporation to operate, if there is a disparity between that individual or that group and the minister, you are punished. Most important channel, funding. You get none or you get it late. your integrity, your relationship with the corporation's burgesses are negatively affected. The ILP is saying that if we are doing reform in the true sense of the word, let us take the corporations away from the ministry. We have 5 state bodies financed by the government under the aegis of the Ministry of Local Government. If you have so many and they are functioning properly, in inverted commas, then take the corporation out and make it an entity in itself. Then you strengthen the arm of the PAEC, the body in Parliament that looks at the accounts, the Parliamentary Accounting Committee, to look at carefully the expenditure and the...
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Your response to what you've just heard, Mr. Vidale.
Sure. Well, the thing is that the bottom line, which none of the other parties will address, is that you have to remove the power from the Minister of Local Government. And all of their documents that I've read, in fact, cement the power of the government as far as local government is concerned. And let me just say that it is reflected in what we have here this evening, because I am, in fact, the only candidate who has actually been put forward by their party to represent tonight in a local government debate.
Mr. Imbert?
Who's on that? But anyway, if my colleague on the right had read our manifesto, he would have seen that we intend to completely remove the command and control function from the minister. That's the weakness of local government. One of the good things about us being able to develop our policy in opposition is that there is no minister of local government. I can assure you that if we proposed the complete separation of the power of the minister from the corporations with a minister of local government, there will be resistance. We intend to reduce the role of the minister to monitoring and evaluation.
Thank you, Mr. Imbert. Your time is up. Dr. Rambachan.
There has been excellent relations between the Minister of Local Government or the Ministers of Local Government and the 14 regional corporations, including those that are not under the control of the People's Partnership. In fact, we play a very supportive and facilitative role, to the extent that in the last fiscal year, within 5 weeks of the budget being passed, local government corporations were able to get confirmation of funds and their project started. And this worked so well that within 8 months of the local government year, 100% of the projects, 1,072 projects, including 66 kilometers of roads and 34.7 kilometers of
time is
drains.
up, Dr. Rambachan. The clock is down, so it will be back. We're going to take a break, and don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
The 2013 local government elections debate is presented by the TT Debates Commission and supported by the Ansimacao Group of Companies, the Neil and Massey Group of Companies, and Republic Bank Limited.
So you in a jam this season, no time to moan and groan.
Christmas looking better with a make it happen low. Let's all go a shopping.
It's Christmas looking better. It's time for renovating. It's Christmas looking better.
A new car home and driving.
It's Christmas looking better. This baby look exciting. It's Christmas looking better. It's easy, quick, and so affordable to have all you need for Christmas with a Make It Happen loan from Republic.
Christmas looking better with a make it happen low.
Republic Bank, we're the one for you.
More than 5,000 residents of Chase Village are now enjoying a better quality of life because of a reliable 24/7 water supply with the completion of the Chase Village pipeline project.
The water supply, we don't have any problem now, and we get it very, very hard. All the basic requirements that we need water for, we don't have no problems. When the water pressure come hard, then we're going to do certain things.
We have been getting enough water, a good supply, that we don't need to get any more tanks. Water is good here.
We could carry about our life as usual now.
Another water improvement project from the Water and Sewerage Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. Water security for every sector. Deliver it. Sustain it.
It's a new day. It's a new day. World is getting ready. Everybody ready, yeah. For a new day. It's a new day. It's a new day. World is getting ready.
Welcome back to live coverage of the Local Government Elections Debate 2013. Our clock in the studio went down a short while ago, but we were being timed from Master Control, so Dr. Rambachan, we were in keeping with the time guidelines that we gave. The next question goes to Akins Vidale of the Movement for Social Justice. What is the MSJ position on the view that local government bodies should operate along the lines of the Tobago House of Assembly?
Yes, well, as I said that before. What we're looking at with the MSG is to have a statutory allocation for local government bodies. What happens now, and you've just heard the discussion between my two colleagues there, is that it really is dependent on the Minister of Local Government and the Cabinet to determine what the allocation for Corporation X, Y, or Z ought to be. And really, we see that what should happen is that you need to have a set of independent criteria predetermined, which will identify that population of 25,000, for example, ought to have 2 community centers, ought to have a proper health facility, ought to have X amount of primary schools, secondary schools, and so on. And that in the absence of those things, you ought to now allocate resources for each community to get up to that standard. And that way, you not only deal with communities which are in the urban centers, but you also deal with rural development equitably, because it's not necessarily just about equality, it's also about equity, and you have to treat with what are the needs of each community at any given point in time, and that is what we are about as far as the link with central government is THA is concerned. But let me also see that in terms of what my colleagues have said, and in particular Dr. Rambachan, where we continue to think that local government ought to just be about paving roads and building box drain. There's a joke in Erie now that they're paving roads for Usain Bolt to run, because they pave 100 meters here, and then 100 meters somewhere else, and then 100 meters somewhere else. So before the 100 meters of road, you have potholes. Then you have the pavement for the paved road for 100 meters, and then after that you have potholes again. So even though they're paving, there's not structure to it, and that is because the government is interested primarily on scoring points, political points for the population.
Thank you, Mr. Vidal. Mr. Imbert?
We've made it clear that we wish to have the THA model of governance implemented for local government bodies. Now, what are the features of the THA model? Firstly, they're not subject to the dictates of the Central Tenders Board, so they can invite tenders and award contracts. Secondly, they're responsible for prescribed central government services without interference from the central government. Thirdly, they can collect taxes within their boundaries. We have made this very clear. It's in our manifesto, and that's PNM policy.
Is that local government is much more than paving roads and box drains. But I'd like to ask my colleague from the extreme right to ask the people of Freeport Mission Road how they feel about their newly paved road, or the people of Third Station Road how they feel about their newly paved road, or the people of Fishing Pond how they feel about their newly paved road. We believe in empowered councils, and we believe that these empowered councils should be given the resources that is consistent with the developmental needs of the region. We feel that development has been one-sided, and that there has been rural underdevelopment in the country, and we intend to correct that in terms of how we empower councils.
Okay, Mr. Roach?
Mr. Moderator, Act 21 of 1990 has been tampered with 11 times since 1990. Each time an adjunct has been added. The ILP says if you are interfering with the Act and you find inadequacies, please deal with it in terms of reform and deal with it decisively. So that we are arguing that the Act should of necessity be reviewed in the context of reformation, and therefore it should be attached to the Constitution.
Thank you. Thank you. Your time is up. Along the same lines, Mr. Imbert, decentralization and devolution of authority and power, there's a sort of recurring themes. People would have heard it time and time again over many years, and they have spanned all political administrations, both past and present. You yourself have spoken about radical reforms. Why do you think all of this has not become a reality?
Well, speaking as someone who has been in a cabinet for more than 12 years, there's always a tendency not to want to let go. That's the command and control syndrome. But the effect of the command and control syndrome is that the local government bodies are inefficient. I looked at the act tonight before I came here. There's very little flexibility. When you look at it, when you try to determine what is the function of the council, very difficult to try and figure out what it is, because the chief executive officer of the corporation really has all of the power, together with the corporate secretary, together with the treasurer. These are public servants. The council can only pass resolutions at statutory meetings once a month and then hope that the public servants will carry out these resolutions. We intend to change all of that. The time has come. There are so many things that local government bodies can do better than the central government. Dealing with local problems, the repairs for schools, for example, that was recommended many years ago, and it's one of the things we intend to give the responsibility to local government corporations to repair schools, so you don't have this problem every year where schools are closed, children can't go to school and so on. It is difficult when you're in government to let go, but we intend to let go, and we intend to give local government bodies, whether they are controlled by the PNM or by the UNC, or, well, I'm not sure, by the ILP possibly, and the MSJ, give them the flexibility and the authority that they deserve.
Thank you, Dr. Rambachan.
Well, we intend to empower the local government corporations. We are not afraid of change, and we're going to introduce change like we have introduced change in terms of the election of aldermen. We intend, for example, to strengthen local government corporations to apply the law, whether it's the Municipal Corporation Act or a revised form of it. And to do that, we intend to set up a municipal court. Recently, we appointed 145 litter wardens across the country, and right now we have 50 employees of the Ministry of Local Government, the corporations, being trained to be public health inspectors.
Thank you. Mr. Roach.
So, Moralta, there are a number of state enterprises which perform similar jobs as the corporations. When we talk in terms of devolution and decentralization, it seems to me that there's an attempt to speak of, to talk about them as if there's a dichotomy between the corporation and the state enterprises. Had I the time, I would explain to you what they are. We are arguing that the devolution...
I'm sorry, but your time is up. Mr. Vidale.
Yeah, we need to discuss nationally this question of devolution versus decentralization. Devolution is not necessarily the same as decentralization, and you'll find that in some countries, Pakistan, I know the UK has started some work on the question of devolution. In Australia as well, they're doing it. And what it really does is it doesn't empower necessarily. What it does is it removes responsibility from central government to the local body without necessarily giving them the authority to do the work that they need to do. And that is a dangerous precedent that we're looking at.
Thank you. A question now for Dr. Rambachan of the People's Partnership. Proportional representation as a feature of local government reforms isn't mentioned in the PP manifesto of 2010. Now in the current white paper on local government reform, and I've checked, I haven't seen any mention of it going back to the 1980s. Where did this come from?
As I said in my opening statement, we are responsive to the wishes of the people. And the people in Trinidad and Tobago, they want a greater say. They want greater participation in the affairs of the community. They want to be part of the decision-making process. They want to share in the governance process. Governance is not just about what the government does. Governance is also about how you bring the citizens into the realm of governing through decision-making and implementation. With the aldermen and the way they are going to be chosen, we get a very important opportunity to ensure that different interest groups can be represented in the corporations. For example, the Prime Minister, when she spoke at the Commonwealth Local Government Conference in 2011 in Cardiff, Wales, said that one of the intentions of the government was in fact to include women representatives as an aldermen to the corporations, and also representatives for youth, male and female. With the way we are going to choose aldermen, special interest groups can now have a place as aldermen. For example, in my own constituency of Tabaquite, where there are approximately 1,500 farmers, you'll find that one farmer has put his name up as an alderman, and he can in fact be chosen, so he can represent the interests of special groups like farmers in Tabaquite, or you may have in Port of Spain. The Chamber of Commerce could have had an opportunity to put their name up as a possible alderman and serve the interests of the business community and Port of Spain in a better way.
Thank you. Mr. Roach, your response.
Proportional representation by the argument just proffered, when we take it to its logical conclusion, a greater say in the politics of your corporation or your region is equal to proportional representation. That does not seem to me to be logical. If you take the case of Laventille, Sour Laventille, 163,000 burgesses or electors, they are going to be given the same number of aldermen as Tunapuna, with 3,000 people.
Sorry, but your time is up. Mr. Vidale, your response.
Sure. I note that Dr. Rambachan did not answer the question that was asked. If you look at the partnerships policy document which they had been circulating and identified 13 consultations, it actually identifies a different mechanism for selection of aldermen. It identifies 3 new aldermen in addition to the instances where you have 2 and 4 currently, and that would be 2 youth, 1 male, 1 female, and one for women. So this really PR really is about politicking and nothing else.
Thank you, Mr. Imbert.
I'll have to agree with my colleague from the MSJ. It was obviously a VAPS. If you look at the white paper, as you have done, if you look at the partnership manifesto, if you look at the 2010 local government manifesto, there's nothing in there that speaks to proportional representation. In fact, if you look in the white paper, you will see that what the partnership proposed was more women and a youth alderman, male and female. Clearly this thing came out of the sky.
And now a question for Ken Roach of the ILP. 55% of persons polled in a 2008 Maurice survey thought that local government bodies waste taxpayers' money. And many thought that they were slow, unresponsive, and sometimes corrupt. What would an ILP-led corporation do to address such perceptions of local government?
Immediately, the ILP proposes to give the local government operators more autonomy, more responsibility, but we anticipate that we will expect more accountability. In the present circumstances, those criticisms you have proffered in terms of perspective on the corporations are legitimate, because if you have, for example, an agency operating under the Ministry of Local Government with a CEO that receives 3 times the sum of the CEO, the salary of the CEO of the corporation, you are talking in terms now of having dissipated any kind of fervor to get the job done. In addition, the bureaucracy in the corporation defies a number of people from giving of their best and encouraging of their best in terms of the provision of services. In any situation where you have a less than adequate room for development and evolution, you are going to have the problems which are consistent with corporations right now. The ILP therefore sees it as critical that these corporations be reviewed immediately in the context of their performance.
Vidale, your response.
Sure. I'm not exactly sure how the ILP, not being in government, is going to do all of that. What this question really speaks to the constitutional reform, which will be dealt with by the leaders and not us here this evening. But I can say that what is required is the mobilization and organization of people at the communities to insist on better representation, and not representation administratively only, but you're now talking about representation where the balance of power changes from top down to bottom up.
Imbert?
Listening to the ILP, I get the sense that they have no plan, or maybe it's a secret plan. But if you look at what we are proposing, we have recognized all of these problems. That information that you have picked up in terms of local government bodies being perceived to be slow, inefficient, and possibly corrupt. That's the whole problem in a nutshell. And that's why we intend to empower local government bodies, give them the authority, give them the autonomy, and give them the funding with checks and balances.
Dr. Rambachan?
there's an assumption being made here that is totally incorrect. If you examine the performance of local government under the People's Partnership, you will see that local government has performed. And I just said we have done 1,072 projects under local government. You know what? None of those projects were over budget. All of those projects came in within 8 months of the fiscal year, which is a record of achievement for local government. We know our responsibility in terms of meeting the needs of clients, as we say, in the local government system or Burgesses. But we also know our responsibility in terms of accounting for the taxpayers' dollars.
Thank you very much. You're looking at live coverage of the local government elections debate 2013. I am your host, Wesley Gibbings, and in studio with me, Akins Vidale of the Movement for Social Justice, Colm Imbert, People's National Movement, Dr. Surujrattan Rambachan, representing the People's Partnership, and Mr. Ken Roach of the Independent Liberal Party. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
The 2013 local government elections debate is presented by the TT Debates Commission and supported by the Rambachan Group of Companies, the Neil and Massey Group of Companies, and Republic Bank Limited. Commission is an independent, autonomous, non-profit body. The TTDC seeks to embed a culture of debates in our nation's democratic process. Debates that will be insightful to inform the decisions and opinions of you, our nation's future. You can support the TTDC's upcoming debates by texting from your B mobile phone. Text 1 TTDC for $10, 2 TTDC for $20, or 4 TTDC for $50. Like us on Facebook and visit our website www.ttdc.org.tt for more details. For 20.
Welcome back. We're viewing a live broadcast of Local Government Elections Debate 2013. In our studio this evening, senior representatives of the Movement for Social Justice, Akins Vidale, represented by Akins Vidale, Colm Imbert, who is representing the People's National Movement, Dr. Surujrattan Rambachan of the People's Partnership, and Ken Roach. We're now going into round number 4 of questions, and we're going to go to Mr. Vidale, and I'm going to ask him, we dealt with this before, but answer me very directly. Is your party a supporter of proportional representation, and explain why?
We are not dismissing it out of hand. What is required at this point is a national discussion on it. We say proportional representation, but proportional representation has the different models, the different moods, the different structures. So when we say that, we have to be clear on which one we're talking about. And we have to also talk about which house we're going to integrate it into. So it's not just a case of saying, okay, we are for or against. So for example, in the current scenario, while we have a position where we would be willing to discuss proportional representation, we are 100% against the process by which this current system of proportional representation was introduced by the government. You cannot have a situation where you have a document that is going around, you've claimed that you had 13 consultations, and then the cabinet unilaterally decides how the aldermen are to be chosen. And then you talk about empowerment and local government being decentralized and so on. And even if you look at that document which the government has put forward, they in fact centralize more power in the hands of the local government minister, because it says very clearly that the local government minister is now going to be responsible for policy direction of the particular corporations. So as far as the MSG is concerned, for us it is a question of dialogue and discussion. It's a question of identifying clearly which system of proportional representation you want to talk about and which house you want to apply it to.
Imbert, your response?
Well, it would seem to me that the MSG does not have a firm position on proportional representation, nor does the government, because I heard the minister say that the current system, as enacted into law, would allow interest groups such as the Chamber of Commerce to nominate an alderman and allow other interest groups. That is not so. The law that was brought to the Parliament and passed with the government using its majority leaves the selection of aldermen entirely up to the political parties.
Thank you, Dr. Rambachan.
But again, the political parties can have an opportunity to invite aldermen from the business community so that interests of the business community can be served, and we intend to do that. You see, people voted for change, and the change they voted for was a change in which they will have a greater say, a greater opportunity to participate. As I said, we are living in a different society, a society in which people do not want to be silent spectators to what is happening, but they want to be part and parcel of the outcomes that take place in their communities, and we intend to fulfill that.
Roach? Mr. Moderator, proportional representation per se is not a problem with the ILP. However, we are acutely aware that proportional representation in a multi-ethnic society such as ours can have very acrimonious implications. As such, we are arguing that if it is to be introduced, it should be properly introduced, and in the present circumstances, the manner in which it was introduced in the Parliament was improper.
Thank you very much. Let's stick with this topic a little bit longer because it's very important, and it's something that's going to be new to the electors. So, Mr. Imbert, I want to ask you, the PNM has had a long history of very strong resistance to this concept of proportional representation. Now, on October the 21st, a kind of hybrid system, if you want to call it that, is going to be introduced. Has the party's view at all changed with respect to an electoral system in which PR is now part of the deal?
Let me deal with what is actually going to happen on October 21st first. I heard Dr. Rambachan say that the opportunity now presents itself for the government to ask interest groups such as the Chamber of Commerce to nominate a representative. But you didn't do that. It's just talk. The system that was introduced is not very different from the previous system. In the past, it was winner takes all. So the party that won the majority of seats in the election selected all of the aldermen. What happens now is use a system of percentages and a formula to determine. But the aldermen are still selected by the political parties. Before we can commit definitively to a system of proportional representation, the population needs to understand what it means. There are pros and cons. In the first class postal system, you have parliamentary representatives such as myself. Direct connection to the electorate, people vote for me and my party, I represent them. In the proportional representation system, you have a disconnect between an elected constituency representative and the voter. In fact, there are no constituency representatives. You vote for a party, you vote for a symbol. We need to educate the people of Trinidad and Tobago. We need to engage them in discussion, get them to understand that if we are going with proportional representation, you will no longer have constituency representatives in the traditional sense of the word. Get that conversation going and then take it from there.
Thank you, Mr. Dr. Rambachan.
What my colleague to my right is saying, we have placed on our list of aldermen who are capable of representing different interests, including the business interests or agriculture or social interests and so on. And we intend to use those aldermen to continue the conversation and develop consensus with all of these groups and to bring them into the domain of local government, because we believe local government is about local economic development. I just want to remind my colleague to my right, it was the PNM who said, Dr. Williams who said, proportional representation is like a dagger in the heart.
Sorry, but your time is up. Mr. Roach.
The ILP is not making any kind of speculative analysis of the effects of proportional representation. We are looking at the data as it evolves. But we are of the strong view that the manner in which it was in which it was introduced is a recipe for chaos. The irony of it is that the same people you claim to be rooting for in your system are the ones who are suspicious.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Mr. Vidale.
Sure. It seems as if my colleague, Mr. Imbert, also does not have a clear position on proportional representation. But I think that what he has articulated is exactly what I've said before, that it cannot happen without proper dialogue. What the partnership did was absolutely wrong. And Dr. Rambachan continues to talk about the fact that it allowed inclusion. The fact is that any member of the chamber who wanted to be offered as an alderman had to use the party's symbol and be recognized as a member of the party.
Thank you very much. The question now goes to Dr. Surujrattan of the People's Partnership. Dr. Rambachan, I want you to tell our live television audience tonight how much of a signal to the People's Partnership would the results of the local government election be, with particular reference to the 2010 general election? How much of a signal would the result of this election be?
In 2010, the population of Trinidad and Tobago gave us a commanding mandate. A mandate that was backed up by 429,000 votes, and the local government elections, 11 out of the 14 corporations. We have done well as a partnership, not only to manage the affairs of local government, but to ensure that we have delivered and delivered consistently over these 3 years to the population. Everyone agrees that wherever you go in Trinidad, you can taste, you can smell, you can feel and experience the infrastructural changes that are taking place. At the same time, we have respected the law. This is the first political party that has not run away from an election. The PNM, for example, postponed local government elections on several occasions. We have never run away from election. Where the Constitution required us to hold by-elections, we are holding by-elections. In that way, we are government who can stand up and say that we respect the law and we respect the democratic rights of citizens to use their vote and to participate in the electoral process when that electoral process is due. In that way, we find that we are respecting the Constitution and we're providing a leadership of trust in the country. And the country can trust us, not in any way at all, to violate the Constitution or violate the law. And I think this country loves that about its government. When everyone asked for elections, we had already decided that elections will be held as they are legally and constitutionally due. When the local government election takes place on October 21st, whatever the outcome of those elections, we are prepared to accept that.
Thank you very much. Mr. Roach, what's your response to what you've just heard?
If the Shogunas West, the results of the Shogunas West by-election did nothing else, what it did was to demonstrate to the present government and the government previous to it was that there is a serious undercurrent of displeasure among the electorate. As a result, the indicators for 2015 have been set in train.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vidale.
Sure. As you're aware, the partnership originally consisted of the Movement for Social Justice as well, so that those 429,000 votes, those persons voted based on documents which were presented to the public. In fact, I was one of the authors of the Local Government Manifesto for the partnership. Its overarching framework, I wrote that. And the MSJ, we walked away because the partnership refused to adhere to those commitments to the national community, and therefore those 429,000 votes were betrayed.
Thank you. Mr. Imbert.
There is no doubt that the partnership received an overwhelming mandate in 2010, twice, in the general and the local election. There is also no doubt they have squandered that mandate. I empathize with Dr. Rambachan, but he's living in dreamland, because they lost all the seats in Tobago. They got wiped out in Chaguanas, and from all accounts they will not do well in the local government election. I will hope that the signal that they get will cause them to do some introspection and adjust.
Thank you. And the next question in this round, the last in this round, goes to Mr. Ken Roach of the Independent Liberal Party. I remember quite some time ago, former Independent Senator Gerard Furness Smith wondering aloud whether a system of local government in a country as small as ours is actually necessary. or desirable. It was a bit of a pet peeve for people who remember Mr. Furnace Smith's contributions in the Senate. What would be an ILP response to this view?
In the present scenario, the disparity between urban and rural areas is accentuated by the manner in which the central governments have seen themselves in relation to the pockets of or communities which we have. For example, there are the last study of which I was a part, there are 585 communities in Trinidad and Tobago. The problem we have is that the outreach has not been good by the central government, so that the corporations filled the breach. In the present scheme of things, where you have a more conscious electorate, people are demanding that their expectations and their needs be fulfilled. In these circumstances, Mr. Furnace Smith's observation was not entirely incorrect. But if we are to keep it, the ILP is saying, let us do something about it so that it can function more adequately. If we are not keeping it, then let us sever those ties and reform in the proper sense of the word.
Thank you very much. Mr. Vidale, your response?
Sure. I don't know that Mr. Roach actually told us what the plan was, but one of the things with local government in Trinidad and in the Caribbean necessarily is that, remember, it's a colonial structure. Right? Municipalities predate independence, and therefore those structures that you have to be transformed absolutely and totally. And it seems as if it's only in opposition that the traditional parties have recognized the need for transformation of local government. So maybe we should begin to run the government from the opposition bench, and we'll be in a lot better place going forward.
Okay, Mr. Imbert?
I have to agree with that, being the opposition. But the fact of the matter is I am getting this sense from the ILP, and the MSG is picking it up as well, that they don't really have a plan. We are all for local government. We believe that that is the best way to have citizens' participation in government, because local government is at the community level. If you abolish local government, then you'll only have national government, and there will be this disconnect between the people and the government.
Thank you, Dr. Rambachan.
We believe that local government is very important, and we intend to create the conditions for stronger councils. We intend to ensure that there is greater citizen involvement, because we believe that greater citizen involvement means that you're going to have better decision making and better quality communities. We also believe that you're going to get better quality services. If you just take two areas where local government within recent times has proven to be invaluable, in terms of disaster responses, local government is the first place for disaster response. And another simple one, the upkeep of recreation facilities, local government does a tremendous job in that regard.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rambachan. You're tuned in to a live broadcast of the Local Government Elections Debate 2013. In studio with me, Wesley Gibbings, are the Movement for Social Justice, the People's National Movement, the People's Partnership, and the Independent Liberal Party. We're going to go to a break now, and we'll be right back.
The 2013 Local Government Elections Debate is presented by the TT Debates Commission and supported by the Ansamacau Group of Companies, the Neil and Massey Group of Companies, and Republic Bank Limited.
So you in a jam this season, no time to moan and groan.
Christmas looking better with a make it happen low. Let's all go a shopping.
It's Christmas looking better. It's time for renovating. It's Christmas looking better.
A new car home and driving.
It's Christmas looking better. It's TV look exciting. It's Christmas looking better. It's easy, quick, and so affordable to have all you need for Christmas with a make it happen loan from Republic.
Christmas looking better with a make it happen low.
Republic Bank, we're the one for you.
Win with WASA. Clear your WASA bill plus pay 2 billing periods on your account in advance and you can win a weekend family vacation for 4 to Magdalena Grand Beach Resort in Tobago. Plus every week, one lucky person will win free water for an entire year. So make sure you pay today. Win with WASA. Brought to you by the Water and Sewerage Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. Water security for every sector. Deliver it. Sustain it.
The Debates Commission is an independent, autonomous, non-profit body. The TTDC seeks to embed a culture of debates in our nation's democratic process. Debates that will be insightful to inform the decisions and opinions of you, our nation's future. You can support the TTDC's upcoming debates by texting from your B mobile phone. Text 1 TTDC for $10, 2 TTDC for $20, or 4 TTDC for $50. Like us on Facebook and visit our website www.ttdc.org.tt for more details. For $20.
Welcome back to this live broadcast of Local Government Elections Debate 2013. I'm your moderator, Wesley Gibbings. In studio with me are Akins Vidale of the Movement for Social Justice, Colm Imbert of the People's National Movement, Dr. Surujrattan Rambachan of the People's Partnership, and Mr. Ken Roach of the Independent Liberal Party. We're now going to round number 5. And the first question goes to Akins Vidale of the MSG. How do you view the suggestion as is expressed in the current white paper on local government reform, that local government elections should be set on a fixed date, and that all of this should be reflected as a provision in the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago?
We agree 100% that local government ought to be in the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. Had it been in the Constitution, we would not have needed a simple majority for the travesty that has occurred now with the selection of aldermen. We would have been able to go to Parliament and they would have required a special majority to make that amendment. But quite apart from simply saying that it ought to have a set date and that it ought to be in there are a number of other fundamental reforms that ought to take place. So for example, in our view as the MSJ, local government also ought to have within it not just the separation from local government, but it ought to be integrated with community development, because one of the problems that you have right now is that village councils, CBOs, NGOs at the level of the community are in fact not registered with local government, but they're registered with the Ministry of Community Development. So when you talk about development at the level of community, the persons who are actually involved in that activity are not part of the local government process. So that we have to find a way, and we can do it constitutionally, but we also have to do it functionally as well, because you can change the Constitution and not change the behavior of the people. So that it has to be done over a period, it has to be done systematically, and you have to be clear that whatever you implement as a constitutional reform process has to have the blessing and has to come from those persons who that process ought to benefit in the long term.
Thank you. Mr. Imbert.
Well, there is a fixed date for local government elections. It's already there. It's in the Municipal Corporations Act. The corporations have a life of 3 years, and then election must be called within 90 days of the expiry of the life of the corporations, of the councils. So I'm a bit surprised that that is not known. In addition, if you look in the Constitution with respect to the Tobago House of Assembly, all it states at Section 11A of the Constitution is that there shall be a Tobago House of Assembly with a presiding officer and so on. There's no reference to a date.
Dr. Rambachan.
Well, as you know, we have been promoting constitutional reform and local government reform. We have held consultations in local government reform in the 14 regional corporations. And in addition to the amendment we brought to the Municipal Corporations Act that will allow for proportional representation in choice of aldermen, we have also said that we are going to bring legislation which will lead to 2 terms for Prime Minister, as well as the recall of members of Parliament. That is as an initial first step in terms of general reform that will satisfy the citizens of the country.
Thank you, Dr. Rambachan. Mr. Roach.
Mr. Moderator, the ILP never saw a dichotomy between constitutional reform and serious consideration for reform of 21 of 90, which is the Regional Corporations Act. Reason? They are inextricably bound up. Now, if the Constitution, if the Corporations Act was incorporated in the Constitution, it is safe to say now that specific atrocities would not have been committed, but they have already been committed.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Colm Imbert of the PNM. You know, shortly before the loss at the polls in 2010, the PNM had proposed a number of reforms related to local government. Among other things, there was a suggestion that planning permission, that there should be a threshold for planning permission for residential and small building developments spanning up to 500 square meters, which would of course have had the effect of sidelining the role of the EMA. What is the PNM's position on this particular area of reform as of now?
Well, I don't agree that it would sideline the role of the EMA. In any approval system, the Town and Country Planning Division, for example, will give planning approval, but it will be subject to conditions. And in any situation where you have a complex development or even a medium-sized development, normally it will be subject to the approval of the EMA. The Environmental Management Authority Act also has its own provisions. There's absolutely no intention to diminish the role of the EMA. But if you look in our manifesto for this election, we do intend to implement that policy. At present, about 50% of the submissions to town and country planning are small dwelling houses and small buildings. It clogs up the system. If you make an application to the Town and Country Planning Division now, you may wait months if you're lucky, but most applicants wait years before they can get their approval. If it were in the hands of local government corporations, that they would give the initial approval, the planning approval, for dwelling houses and small buildings, it would free up the Town and Country Planning Division to deal with land divisions, with housing developments, with commercial buildings and so on. We are all for it. It's in our manifesto and it's a pledge and a policy of the PNM.
Dr. Rambachan?
I just want to let my colleague to my right know, Mr. Imbert, that people do not wait months and years again for their plans to be approved by Town and Country Planning. In fact, under Dr. Botiwari, that has been reduced to as little as 30 days and a maximum of 60 days. Under the Planning and Facilitation of Development Bill, which is going to come before Parliament, what is going to happen is local government corporations are going to be further empowered, where they're going to engage in ministerial planning, but they are going to be able to approve simple plans as well as simple developments. And that will be a giant step in authority for local government.
Mr. Roach?
The Town and Country Planning Act is integrally involved in 21 of 90, which is the Corporations Act. They are inseparable. In order for us to drive the process forward, the same process that you outlined, Mr. Moderator, some element of separation must take place. The bill that my friend says is about to be introduced has inherent problems with respect to that as well, and it has to be addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Mr. Vidale.
Sure. I'm not sure if my colleague on my left is aware that perhaps the PNM also didn't know that in 1962, 1974 and 2006 that there's a fixed date for local government elections because they failed to call them then on several occasions. And as far as planning is concerned, the bottom line is this: we have a problem nationally. So when you localize it without an overarching plan, you run into problems. And lack of planning is why we have all these infrastructural challenges with flooding and so on in several communities across the country.
Thank you very much. Next question for Dr. Rambachan. And we touched on this a little earlier, but we'll come back to it now. Do you think that the role and conduct of local government bodies should be entrenched in the Constitution?
Absolutely. We can go to Parliament today and with a simple majority remove local government altogether. But what you then do is you will dash the hopes and aspirations of so many young people as well as other persons who want to serve their communities. What we must do is at all times provide the opportunity for people to serve their communities, to have a say, to contribute to its development. What people are able to create and contribute to creating, they have a greater affinity for and love. Through local government, we engage in collaboration with the communities. And because we are able to engage in collaboration, we do two things. We get greater commitment, but we energize a level of creativity in the communities that gives you certain kinds of outcomes, two of which are one, better communities, and two, better services for the community. We feel that, that in the Constitution, local government should be protected. And in fact, that is one of the recommendations that has been made in the white paper that has been laid in the Parliament for debate and for discussion. We also feel that a place has to be made for the youth to participate more fully in local government. And it's our intention through advisory committees to ensure that youth and women in particular, they are able to contribute to local government functioning. We believe that communities should be built by the communities. And what we are trying to do is to ensure that we provide leadership of locality in those communities.
Mr. Roach, your response.
All that was just said were true. There would be no ILP on the political landscape of Trinidad and Tobago right now. The groundswell of support enjoyed by the ILP was born out of a whole lot of derision, even to the extent that we had 560 people coming forward to become 160 councillors. We had in 61 days, we had 120,000 people registered.
Sorry, but you're out of time, Mr. Roach. Mr. Vidale.
Sure. No, I don't necessarily want to use age as a political tool here, but easily the youngest panelist here. The MSG has not just decided to have young candidates run, but we also hold positions in the party, because I'm also the party organizer for the MSG. So that we are not giving lip service to inclusion of youth and women and so on, but we actually give power to them, and they're a key part of the development and building of the party.
Mr. Imbert?
Yes. The partnership brought a bill to Parliament in January on the eve of the Tobago House of Assembly election, promising to give more constitutional protection to the THA. They lost the election. That bill has died. The partnership had enough seats in the Parliament to pass with the requisite majority a constitutional amendment to entrench local government in the Constitution, and they failed to do so.
Thank you. Next question to Ken Roach of the ILP. The ILP promotes itself as an environmentally green political organization. What are your specific proposals for improving this big area of waste management systems in the municipalities?
Mr. Moderator, in the year 2000, when the PNM was in power, an agreement was signed ratifying Trinidad and Tobago's membership in the UNCCD, United Nations Convention for the Combating of Desertification and Drought. We became a bona fide member. In 2005-2006, a country report, a compulsory document was written about the state of the environment in Trinidad and Tobago, implications going forward for mitigation and remedial measures. One of the basic principles of that whole operation is as follows: the closure, relocation, and rehabilitation of the Beetham dump. The reason, Mr., is that globally, the whole concept of landfills is no longer feasible in the concept of the environment, so that we are out of sync with the global expectations of our country. No longer do we throw garbage in landfills and cover it up with the hope that it will disappear, because we are interfering with aquifers. 2 aquifers have been destroyed in the northern on the northern range as a result of landfills. We have to move from there.
Thank you. Mr. Vidal?
In the current system which applies, many of us across the country, including in Arima where I live, we woke up one morning to have a garbage truck stop coming at 5 and start coming at 10. And that really was because of how we engaged this tendering process. What is required is not a move necessarily by local government, but by central government to introduce proper tendering legislation, procurement legislation, where these services that are contracted are in fact done.
Thank you. You're out of time, Mr. Imbert.
Well, I was struggling to determine exactly what the ILP plan was for waste management. I wasn't certain. But we certainly intended and certainly intend to use modern methods of waste management, such as incineration, for example, and using current landfills as temporary stockpiles to go to a central location, and so on. It is certainly something that needs to be dealt with and modernized.
Thank you, Dr. Rambachan.
Well, we are very concerned about the environment. In fact, we have a Ministry of the Environment and Water Resources, which ministry is committed to the best practices that will ensure that we have a clean environment. We have also strengthened legislation, for example, with respect to the way you mine aggregates in the country. But we intend to deal with the dumps by reducing the size of the dumps in the first instance through promoting recycling and the separation of garbage at source, so that we can in fact reduce what goes into the dumps and create hazards, health hazards. This is our...
Thank you very much, Dr. Rambachan. This is a live broadcast of the Local Government Elections Debate 2013. I am your moderator, Wesley Gibbings. In studio with me, the Movement for Social Justice, the People's National Movement, the People's Partnership, and the Independent Liberal Party. When we come back, we go to the final round.
The 2013 Local Government Elections Debate is presented by the TT Debates Commission and supported by the Ansimacao Group of Companies, the Neil and Massey Group of Companies, and Republic Bank Limited. The Debates Commission is an independent, autonomous, non-profit body. The TTDC seeks to embed a culture of debates in our nation's democratic process. Debates that will be insightful to inform the decisions and opinions of you, our nation's future. You can support the TTDC's upcoming debates by texting from your B-Mobile phone. Text 1 TTDC for $10, 2 TTDC for $20, or 4 TTDC for $50. Like us on Facebook and visit our website www.ttdc.org.tt for more details. For 20.
Welcome back to our live broadcast of Local Government Elections Debate 2013. We are now down to our final round of debate and upcoming closing remarks by the participants that have come from the Movement for Social Justice, the People's National Movement, the People's Partnership, and the Independent Liberal Party. And the first question to close off this round would be to Akins Vidale of the MSJ. And I want to ask you, Mr. Vidale, what would be, for the MSJ, an ideal local government model that would represent the philosophical ideals of your party?
Sure. It would be one where, instead of what we have now, which is a centralized power structure originating from the cabinet, you have power transformed to the people at the communities where they live. If you talk to the average person in Trinidad and Tobago, and you ask them, did you get an opportunity to decide which bridge would be built for you? Did you get an opportunity to decide which road has to be paved? Did you get an opportunity to decide where your community center ought to go and what it ought to look like? The early child care centers, which are also in the act, the responsibility of local government, did you get to decide what it looks like? Every single one looks exactly the same. That is what local government ought to be. Local government ought to be where the people within the community, and they have to be organized. So the government also has to facilitate organization of the people, and not create institutions or party groups, but really separate itself from the organization of the people, so that they are then better equipped now to engage in this process of building the kind of community that they want to live in. And that really is what the MSJ is looking at going forward in terms of our ideal model for what a local government corporation ought to look like and what it ought to function like.
Thank you, Mr. Imbert.
It all sounds very nice, but all of the successful local government models all over the world that have engaged citizens deal with two issues. One, communication. How do people communicate their wishes, their desires, their needs, their requirements to their local government elected representatives? And accountability. How do citizens get an assurance that after they have communicated their needs, that these needs are being expressed in the projects and programs? That's in our manifesto. We intend to create.
Thank you. Dr. Rambachan.
Well, the ideal local government system, of course, will be one that is people-centered and one that is delivery-focused. Our councillors, over the last 3 years, have been engaged in consultations with their communities, with the stakeholders, and on the basis of that, they bring to the council their programs, their plans, and the projects, as well as what is being asked for in the communities. And then the program of works is developed around the needs of the people. So we are people-centered and delivery-focused.
Thank you. Mr. Roach?
The philosophical underpinnings of the ILP with respect to the workings of the corporations have to do, Mr. Moderator, with one, service orientation. Our concept is essentially our service to the people and the anticipation of their needs. Regular consultation. We propose to embark on consultations on so regular a basis that it will become second nature for people to understand.
You're out of time. The next question in the final round of tonight's debate goes to Colm Imbert of the PNM. Throughout much of what you have said this evening, there has been the suggestion that all is not well with local government. On hindsight, given the PNM's experience in government over many years, what would the party have done differently to have left local government in a better situation now?
Precisely what we intend to do now. As I said, it's difficult to let go. You have this command and control structure at the level of the central government. If you go back to pre-independence, you will see that the municipalities had much more autonomy and control than they have now. It changed over the years as we've moved towards independence. A lot of the responsibilities and authority was taken away from local government bodies. This moved to the County Councils Act of 1967, which was an attempt to give back some authority to local government bodies. And then you had the Municipal Corporations Act, which in essence really did not change the paradigm. We should have devolved authority to local government bodies. That's what we intend to do. We intend to give them the authority that they need, the funding that they need, the autonomy they require, and also create a system where it's just not a bunch of people in a room talking to themselves. Because that's the problem with local government as well. How does your average member of the public communicate to the local government authority the vision and the plan they want to see for their municipality? There must be a forum created for that. There must be regular sessions. And then after that is done, there must be a system of accountability where on a regular basis, perhaps on a monthly basis, the corporations account to the people on what they have done to fulfill.
Thank you, Dr. Rambachan.
Well, my colleague has had 47 years as a party in the political sphere, and in those 47 years they have done nothing to transform local government. The first time local government got a shot in the arm was in 1990 when there was a change in government from 86 to 90, and you had the Municipal Corporations Act. And right now it is the only other time that something has really happened where we have presented, based on our local government reform program, a draft white paper in the Parliament which is to be debated and discussed.
Thank you. Mr. Roach, your response.
Mr. Moderator, you have rightly said that all is not well with respect to this particular topic. All is not well in the PNM with respect to a number of things. All is not well in the COP and the PP with respect to these matters also. Because there has been a degree of stasis that has been allowed to linger and fester up until 2013, whence the interest in corporations all of a sudden. Well,
I'm sorry, but we're out of time.
With all due respect to my colleague on my left, between 1986 and 1990, we heard literally the same thing from the PNM, that they were going to change and they were going to change and they were going to change. In 1990, the NAR had left several amendments to the local government, which would have empowered local government. In 1991, when the PNM came into office, they reversed a significant number of those things. So I asked the population, on what basis are we to believe the PNM now that they're going to be any different?
This question goes to Dr. Surujrattan. The PP dominated local government polls in 2010. Try to give me an honest scorecard of its performance over the past 3 years dominating the local government scenario.
Well, we have been very responsive to the needs of people. As I said before, what we do is first we listen to the people, and on the basis of those consultations and that process of listening, we develop the programs that will meet the needs of citizens in the country. As a result of that, if I may use last year as an example of what I'm talking about, local government corporations, within 5 weeks of the passing of the budget, were able to draw down funds and begin their projects. And I repeat again, it's the first time in the history of local government that within 8 months, the projects were virtually completed, all within budget and within time. And that is a record for local government. It tells you how much we have moved to be more effective, more efficient, and to reduce bureaucracy. Secondly, we have done projects that are unimaginable. For example, 65 kilometers of roads were rehabilitated and paved by local government corporations. That does not include the 65 in the 237 kilometers of roads that were done through the special purpose companies on behalf of local government. This year, 63 bridges were started. 32 are completed, and the rest will be completed except one by the end of October. And in this way, we have demonstrated beyond a shadow of a doubt that we are able to perform and to deliver in the interests of the people. This tells you that we have a plan, that we have been able to move to develop the managerial skills of the people at local government. We have been able to train them, and that is going to make a tremendous difference in the next 3 years when the population re-elects us again to run not just 11 but 14 corporations.
Thank you, Dr. Rambachan. Mr. Roach, what's on your scorecard?
My question is, why the need for the special purpose companies like PSAEL and Rural Development Company when the corporations are slated to perform these developmental processes? Now, the plan that the PNM is talking about and the plan that the PP is talking about seem to me to be void of a basic element, Mr. Moderator, and that is the human factor.
Thank you very much. Your time is up. Mr. Vidale.
I just have one question. If in fact the scorecard is as good as Dr. Rambachan says, then why are the people so unhappy? Why are the majority of people so unhappy? If the scorecard is as good as he says it is, the fact of the matter is that we cannot continue to confine local government to paving of roads and building box drains. Government cannot be about that. Government has to be about people-centered development, which is articulated by the government, but they do something completely different.
Imbert? Yeah. The 1990 Municipal Corporations Act, which was passed by a government of which Dr. Rambachan was associated, really did not give any authority to local government corporations. In the period 2002-2010, the PNM developed 2 green papers for public comment, 1 white paper that was published as official government policy, and draft legislation. The partnership has spent the last 4 years completely wasting time. All they had to do was take those plans and implement them.
Thank you very much. The final question for this evening goes to Ken Roach of the ILP. What are the highest priorities for the ILP within the scheme work of the framework of local government?
The rationale for ILP intervention into the political landscape was a means by which we could provide the population with a vehicle which will convince them that they are going to be taken to where they want to go. Where do they want to go? We know because we have been on the ground for quite some time. The groundswell of support is an indication of the fact that people agree with the ILP that we are getting there. How we will eventually get there, we are involving the population to the extent that they will provide the inherent driving force to get to the point where citizens can feel that sense of satisfaction, some sense of security. This is why we are looking at crime. We are looking at the whole ICT concept of existence behind our various plans, education, health, those sectors which deal with emergencies, any kind of emergency. I heard the Minister of Local Government talk about a 3-digit figure to be used by the burgesses in the various corporations to get assistance for health and fire and other kinds. We propose to carry that with us.
I'm sorry, but your time is up. Let's get some responses. Mr. Vidale.
Sure. The ILP really is a manifestation of the failure of the traditional parties to really meet the needs of the people at a fundamental level. We've developed a culture of exploitation where we use people to win elections, where we use roads and box trains which are supposed to be rights of people. You're supposed to be comfortable where you live, and we use these things as electioneering tools. So what has happened now is you have a party which has emerged, which has as the front of its policy all of these things, and the traditional parties have no way to deal with it.
Thank you, Mr. Imbert.
Every time I listen to the ILP rep, I get this sense that they have no plan. We have created 14 separate manifestos, one for each corporation. In each of these manifestos is a detailed, comprehensive development plan for the region, looking at the region as a whole, drawing on the work done by the PNM in the 2009 period. I get the feeling that the ILP is focusing on box drains and patching of potholes. They have no vision, they have no plan, and they have to come better than that.
Thank you, Dr. Rambachan.
The People's Partnership, when it came into office, people expected a higher morality from the People's Partnership. And the People's Partnership and the leader, Kamla Prasad Bisesa, has never failed at any time it was required to engage in a higher morality, and therefore dismissed ministers and made changes as they were required. In the case of the ILP, my friend referred to the birth of the ILP. The leader of the ILP has not defended himself with respect to the allegations that have been made against him. Every time an allegation is made, he resigned from the positions. Do you want that morality in leadership in Trinidad?
Thank you very much, Dr. Rambachan. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We're going to break now, but when we come back, we're going to have some closing remarks from the debaters.
The 2013 Local Government Elections Debate is presented by the TT Debates Commission and supported by the Ansamacau Group of Companies, the Neil and Massey Group of Companies, and Republic Bank Limited.
Where people are people, you know what I mean. Tattoo celebrates 50 years fulfilling dreams. For 50 years we've been right by your side, serving you with passion and pride. For 50 years